Alright, you guys. This is a random one. I got a bunch of videos here that I have saved, and I want to get started with this one, the economics of private jets. So we're gonna start here. If you guys got ideas for videos, definitely let me know. But we're just gonna kick it off with this for now, and go from here. I'm chilling. I'm having a beer. I don't have anything I can do right now. Everything is closed as far as me getting progress in real life done. So after 6 o'clock, I work on this brain. Before 9 o'clock, I got to get some more work done. So hold on 1 second. I want to make sure that you guys can see the chat, what's going on in the chat. And for those of you who have not been on one of my lives in quite some time, welcome. What up? Glad to have you guys here. All right, so this is here. Let me see, can I do this with the overlay? I think I'm Gucci. Why it's not showing? All right, we got one person watching. Hey, we made it. We made it. We're not gonna show Ecamm. We're gonna show Bagata. Bagalo sepa. Everything you do, something. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. Alright, if you in here, say something, man. If not, it's gonna be a lonely live stream. But I'll take it. I'll do it. Everybody gotta start somewhere. Hey, we watching from Northdale. What's up, bro? All right, let's go ahead and kick it. This is just random knowledge I'm trying to peep real quick. Let's see how this works. Run it. No videos want to play. I wonder if it's because I'm live. Look, what's NJ? What's NJ mean? Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not playing.
The real price of
Plays there. Now you know what? We're gonna have to flake on that and try something else out. All right, you guys tell me what y'all want to watch. You guys can see my screen. What y'all want to watch, man? I'm just trying to gain information, man. Learn some shit. Let me watch this.
It's a medium of exchange. It can make you smile, make you cry, but it can also control entire economies. Money. This is a sticky subject when we're steering towards dangerous inflation and recession, but the clock is ticking. Are you going to take the time to understand what money is and how it works, or are you going to let yourself just float along with the whims of the economy? Understanding money allows you to make more of it. But yet, if you'd ask a group of strangers what money really is, you'd get a ton of different responses, and most of them would be pretty incomplete. That's why understanding how money works is essential for times like these. But why do we need money at all? Before it was invented, for centuries, humanity used to exchange goods for other goods, a phenomenon known as bartering. This was pretty simple, but it carried a lot of complications. Imagine if you were a farmer living in Mesopotamia around 4,000 years ago. You needed to buy a lamb from your neighbor. Maybe you'd offer up 3 chickens in exchange for his 1 lamb. I'm just guessing. I don't know exact chicken-lamb exchange rates, but that's the exact point. No one knows chicken-lamb exchange rates or coffee cup Red Bull exchange rates or anything for that matter. The problem here is you need to offer exactly what the seller wants. So if he's not interested in chickens or one of them has a bad wing, you could forget about his lamb. Just imagine a world without money where you'd have to barter to buy your laptop or make an investment in Tesla shares. If you were a plumber, you'd have to find a seller of Tesla shares with a dookie lodged in his toilet in order to get those Tesla shares. This would be a nightmare and large-scale economies could never exist. So first of all, money is a necessity, and that's why it was invented. It's universally accepted as a medium of exchange. It works more or less like a social contract. It has value because society as a whole agrees, this is worth about $1. Let's see how. Before money was invented, people moved from bartering to commodities and then coins. Commodities could have been anything of value. They started out with really weird objects like seashells, whale teeth, and dried corn. But then we transitioned to precious metals like gold and silver. This was an intermediate solution because they acted as currency. So you didn't need the right seller anymore, you just needed a market. Plus, they're easier to store, transport, and divide than lambs and chickens. But even that wasn't perfect. If your currency is gold, it's heavy and you're limited in how much of it you can supply. But what if there was something cheap and easy to carry? Paper money. The transition made a whole lot of sense. But this ease of production had an interesting side effect because the difference between the cost of producing paper money and the actual value is enormous. Printing a $100 bill only costs the treasury about 15 cents. Well, its value, it's $100. That juicy difference between cost and value is called seigniorage, the profit a government makes from printing money. So the US Mint manufactures money for peanuts. Then the Federal Reserve buys it at the much higher face value, and the positive revenue flows straight into the government's pockets. The total amount of money in the world is around $418 trillion.
That's crazy.
We can say that money has mainly three functions. The first, as we've seen, is to be a medium of exchange. The second function is to be a store of value. Money preserves itself better than most physical goods like Mesopotamian chickens. So this means that it can easily be stored.
¿Qué pasó? Bro.
Money preserves itself.
What the hell is going on? What up, Cole Barber? I don't know what happened to my video. All right, here we go.
Better than most physical goods like Mesopotamian chickens. So this means that it can easily be stored and used in the future. The third is to be a unit of account. We measure the value of things in currency. It's just easier to understand the value of a car in dollars rather than cocoa beans or whale's teeth. This is essential to understand how the government and the Fed use money to influence the economy. And this all relates to your personal wealth and earning potential. More on that later. Of course, things have evolved even a step further than physical cash. And chances are that most of your money isn't stacked in some shoebox in the back of your closet. Your currency is likely in a digital format, ones and zeros in a bank terminal. Our money system works so well that we're generally okay with never even seeing the money, and we trust that it will still be there. But what if that trust is fading away? Or worse, what if the value of that money is fading away? Our inflation is at a 40-year high. This hurts everyone, not just the rich. Now, inflation is a weird word because when moderate inflation, that means that there's a lot of money in circulation. So it's easy to get loans and spend and invest. It's actually kind of a good thing when moderate. But when it gets out of hand, that's when we see severe drawbacks. And according to several economists, we're marching towards a recession. Recently, Larry Summers, Harvard economist and former Treasury Secretary, published a study. In this paper, Summers claims that ever since World War II, whenever there was a certain level of inflation combined with low unemployment, just like now, we went straight into a deep recession. Now, some people think that this is the worst time to invest, while others think this is exactly why you should invest, and that's just how markets work. There's always someone betting for and against everything. Meanwhile, the government and the Fed are planning different moves to battle the upcoming recession. But how? Well, until 1971, the US dollar was backed by gold. That meant that the value of the dollar was linked to the value of gold. But that also meant the US government could only print money in proportion to the amount of gold it physically held. This makes sense, but there's a major limitation. It meant that there was a cap on monetary growth, a governor on the economy. That was until this guy came along. The US abandoned the gold standard and put the economy in hyperdrive, a grand experiment. If the world accepts US dollars and the US can literally make however much of these dollars they like, you can see how easy it becomes to fund the largest military in the world or prop up new industry. So what's backing the dollar now? There's got to be some reason we all accept this stuff, right?
We respect the US.
There is, and it's simple. One word, really. Trust. There's no precious metal or commodity backing and guaranteeing the value of the US dollar. And this isn't just a thing in the US. It's the same for all major currencies around the world. It's only the faith that we have in the system that gives this stuff value. It's our belief that people will accept our money and that in the future our economy will be strong. Although it seems positive, this all brings volatility because governments and central banks are now free to manipulate its value. This gives us powerful tools to generate growth and opportunities, but it also creates huge, massive risks for countries. In extreme cases, hyperinflation can cause devastating effects, absolute mayhem. Take Venezuela. It used to be the wealthiest country in Latin America thanks to the fact that it sits on one of the largest oil reserves in the entire world. But too much of a good thing isn't always great. They were too reliant on oil, and when prices went up, the country had an economic boom. When prices declined, it was disaster. These surges happened a few times in their history, but when oil prices dropped worldwide in 2014, shit really hit the fan. With the economy in rapid decline, President Maduro decided to try and save the economy by printing more money. This worked in the past, and all they needed was faith, and they could make it through this. But faith was gone. Faith is the #1 currency, remember. By 2019, consumer prices went up by 60%.
Did y'all hear that? Faith is the #1 currency. That's the first time I ever heard that, but it's so true. People have faith in something. They believe in something. It's true. The US dollar is true. Crazy.
5,000%, and their money was essentially worthless. And this isn't the only case. In Zimbabwe, inflation was so high that prices doubled every 24 hours for a period of time. And the country even issued a banknote worth $100 trillion. That's 14 zeros, and in those days, that would get you a bus ticket. Obviously, those are extreme cases, but economists are always worried that inflation might get out of hand even at lower scales. So should we expect a recession, or are there opportunities ahead? First of all, the entity that's responsible for monetary policy isn't the government. It's not the legislator, not the judiciary power, it's the central bank. The idea is we want to keep our money independent from the quarrels of politicians. I'm not sure how well that works, but that's the idea anyways. The central bank decides whether to turn on the money printers or not. In the US, this is called the Federal Reserve, which is probably the most powerful institution in the world. In Europe, it's the European Central Bank. The Fed affects just about every aspect of our lives. That's because they control the levers of employment, interest rates, and the money supply. Understanding these levers will help you understand the economy and how you can earn more. To put simply, the Fed can either increase the amount of money in circulation, or they can make money more expensive. This changes the money supply. In practice, the Fed decides whether or not to buy securities like US Treasury bonds. To understand this, we need to reframe our minds. Because when you go to the store and you buy a gallon of milk, you purchase it with money already in the money supply. That money was someone else's before it was yours, then it was yours, and now it's a store's. When the Fed buys something like Treasury bonds, they're actually placing completely new money into the economy, meaning there's now more money available to trade for everyone. It's an injection of brand new cash. Then when the economy is getting a bit too hot, the Fed will reduce these purchases, reducing the injections of new cash. These actions either make money cheaper or more expensive. The more money there is, the cheaper it becomes. But that's not their only tool, because the Fed can also change interest rates, and this has a butterfly effect. Commercial banks borrow money from the Federal Reserve. So if the Fed charges a higher interest rate to commercial banks, these banks will then charge a higher interest rate to us when we borrow money. This is exactly why high growth companies see huge changes in stock price when interest rates change.
Crazy.
Because high growth companies typically operate on a ton of debt. When you have a ton of debt, a 1% change in interest rates can completely change your business strategy, and that's why their stock price can change so dramatically. So the question is, can the Fed fix the economy and reverse the trends in the short term? Probably not. And here's why. Current inflation is caused by several external factors. When the pandemic hit, there was a period of time when no one was spending more than they had to. We were unsure what was going to happen, and this was terrible for the economy. It triggered a series of events. The Fed in March 2020 reduced reserve requirements to 0% for commercial banks. This meant that banks were no longer required to keep any cash on hand. This allowed banks to freely lend money to individuals as much as they wanted, which means more money in the economy. Then governments began injecting massive amounts of cash into the economy through stimulus plans like the $1.9 trillion bill in 2021, even more money into the economy. All of these measures helped the economy, and meanwhile the stock market started to recover and generated some growth and opportunities, but not all was well. Labor shortages and physical resource shortages.
Knowing what you know now, what would you guys have done differently when the pandemic happened? I would have bought a house sooner. Probably would have got more cheap debt, bought more investments. Had I known what I know today, it's crazy.
This caused the production of goods and services to slow. And then came war and sanctions. This caused a spike in the price of oil and gas worldwide, increasing the cost of regular business even further. So we have more money than ever, but goods and services are harder and more expensive to obtain. This is a classic supply and demand graph. When you have more demand than there is supply, prices have only one way to go: up. Prices going up is just another way of saying the value of the dollar is going down. That's inflation. It's anyone's guess as to when or how this supply and demand graph will settle back down to normal.
It's crazy.
And let's face it, we have no control.
Prices going up,
but we
it's just the value
individual
of the dollar
action.
going down.
I was recently going through Warren Buffett's annual shareholder meetings, and I came across something really interesting. Buffett said there are two ways to protect yourself from inflation and monetary risk. The first is your own individual skills. Buffett stated that,
you know why? Because your skills go up, you're more value to the marketplace. You're not easily fired. You know what I mean?
if you have a skill, whether that be writer or plumber or anything, you will always be paid in proportion to the value of your service.
Especially in 2022.
No matter what the currency of that.
Especially in 2022 with gig economy, with Uber Eats, all these different ways to make money without having an employer. You just got to build your skill sets up, man.
Economy is. And this makes sense. Let's say inflation doubles overnight. A business's problem is now worth 2 times more on paper. And you can now charge the appropriate economic rate based on the solution to that problem. Skills scale up with inflation, at least in the long run. Basically, Buffett is saying skills pay the bills. And the second way to avoid monetary risk, according to Buffett, is by investing in wonderful businesses. His thought process is that businesses in high demand are just that. They're in high demand. No matter what the currency is, people will trade some proportion of their labor for that thing. His example, like always, is Coca-Cola. So if, let's say, you're willing to trade 5 minutes of your time for a Coke today, there's no reason that wouldn't still be true if our currency was instead gold bars or Bitcoin or anything else.
This is true.
So it's important to remember that currency is a store of value. It's
People
not
always buy
value
iPhone.
in and of itself. The way that you win the game of money is by finding a way to disproportionately create a high amount of value. If you can create real value, if you can solve problems, you will earn money no matter which format that money is in. And on that note, I need to capture a bit of value because today's sponsor is FTX. FTX is your one-stop crypto shop. Well, and using the link in the description will save you tied to inflation in Venezuela. I can't believe that this.
Listen, that was a good video. FTX is dope too, for the crypto or whatever. I don't know what y'all want to watch next. I'm gonna get off this live. I'll start up a new one, and we'll keep growing in knowledge. I learned some things. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I learned some things. It created some confirmation for me, skills, and investing in good businesses. And some of those good businesses could be things like Airbnbs. I just started investing in some properties. We just put an offer on a second one, like a block away from the one I just bought. Because Airbnbs, I think, are going to be dope. No matter, especially we saw throughout the pandemic, Airbnb did great. So, all right, we're going to watch another video after this. Tune in, y'all.